Oh,
Hi, Emily. How are you?
hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good. It's really good to see you today. I know the last time that we spoke, we touched a little bit about your past and your childhood growing up, and we thought that maybe if we worked through some of your patterns with family systems therapy, that might be a good fit.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, good. So, just to give you a little bit of information about family systems therapy, we look at your experiences not just as individual struggles, but as patterns shaped by the family you grew up in. So, we'll explore things gently and at a pace that feels comfortable for you. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, great. So, first off, what feels most important for you to talk about today?
So, since the last time that I came in, I've been having a lot of anxiety at work. Our afternoons, we have a lot of meetings that are scheduled, and the meetings, usually I'm one of the few women in the meetings, and it's a lot of guys. And then knowing that they're going to be in an enclosed area, I get really anxious and nervous, and I start panicking, even if it's earlier in the day. And by lunch, my nerves are shot, and I sometimes will leave the office and go and drink some alcohol just in order to come back and make it through the meeting to get through the afternoon at work. Um, and it's been really bothering me, and it's been a really big struggle that I've been having the last little bit. So that has been, I guess, my top concern lately.
That sounds rough. So, thank you for sharing that. So, what we'll do is we'll explore how the emotional atmosphere in your childhood might be shaping your responses to stress today. So let's back up a little bit. And can we talk a little bit about what your home life felt like when you were growing up?
Yeah, I guess so. So growing up, my mom and dad, they got divorced when I was like two, and then shortly after, my mom got with my stepdad, and he was around quite a bit, and he was pretty angry a lot of the time. Whenever he would get angry, my mom would just shut down emotionally. Um, and that kind of just left me in the middle of the two of them, and trying to trying to just make the peace between them, and trying to make him not as angry, but also be there for my mom. And a, it was just horrible, like being pulled and feeling like I was not able to help anyone, and everything was just so unpredictable of what was going to happen at all times with his anger. And it was it was just so unsafe. The feelings, the emotions, the everything, like the thoughts, I try to block those out for the most part and not think about them. um but obviously then it just shows up in other ways, and I know that, but I still don't like to think about them.
Sounds like a really stressful environment for a child. I mean, growing up with that kind of unpredictability can teach you to stay on alert all the time.
Yeah, I definitely feel like growing up I was on high alert. And being on high alert with just with my stepdad's anger, because not knowing if he was gonna throw and break things, or if he was gonna try to hit someone. So just having that high alert at all times. But then after moving out, the high alert never left, and it has maintained. And I'm in my 30s now, and I still am on high alert. I'm on high alert at work, and it's to me it's ridiculous because no one has done anything to me at work, and still I'm on high alert and I have so much anxiety, and it's frustrating because I I know it's not realistic to and not there's no reason I have need to be on high alert, but I still am. And I think that's kind of it feels defeating at times.
It's we're seeing with what you're talking about is something that we see often in these situations is where the child ends up taking on emotional roles that they never should have to carry. Um, so I'm curious, did you ever feel like you were pulled into the middle of tension between your mom and your stepfather?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like all the time. Sometimes purposefully, one or the other would kind of put me in the middle, to try to have someone on their side or kind of use me as a pawn. And other times I feel like I would try to do it just to try to keep the peace between the both of them. Um, it didn't seem to work well in many of the situations. Um, but it was an attempt.
That's a really heavy role for a child. So in family systems therapy, we call this triangulation. But for you, I understand it was simply survival as a child. I think through those situations too, your body learned that safety depended on anticipating danger and managing other people, your mother and stepfather's emotions.
Yeah, I had to kind of prepare for the like possibility of like, okay, well, in case he's angry tonight, like what's the plan gonna be? And like, well, in case he's angry, and even like trying to consider like when I was at school in high school, like if I had practices or games or homework, like I had to try to like prepare and like think of other like potential rides home, because if he was upset and wouldn't let my mom drive to come pick me up and like he wouldn't come get me, I had to have like different options, but then you also had to make sure that like you didn't let people like catch on to what was going on. So it was kind of always trying to find like keeping the secret, but then making everything work. And it was just a constant like unpredictable puzzle that you're putting together.
It sounds like as a child, you didn't really have a safe space to be a child.
No, I agree with that. I didn't have a safe childhood that a lot of people like will look back and talk on and joke, and sometimes when they will bring up different thoughts and ideas, um and I will, if they sometimes like my coworkers will say like, oh yeah, like what was your favorite part of childhood and different things, and honestly sometimes I just lie and will make something up because I can't think of fun times in my childhood. I can think of times like at school, but then a lot of times it's just like kind of dampened by a lot of not fun times. So I think about the times that I would like to have had or like that I've seen my friends have, and I'll just kind of report on those.
I think without those safe spaces, I hear what you're really telling me is you really didn't have any boundaries in your family, or the boundary lines were skewed. So I guess in your own words, could you describe if there were any boundaries in your family or what that looked like for you and your family?
I guess our boundaries were like to not let people know what was going on. Um, I made the mistake once of saying something. I didn't say completely what was going on, but when I was younger, I made a comment to a friend and they reported to their mom. So then it eventually kind of the mom reported something, but when I got back, then I lied because I was like, oh, no, 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 like that's not what I meant. So they kind of played it off as like, oh, it was a miscommunication. But I found out really quick that you cannot say anything about what's going on at home. Um, that is a very strong boundary that like no one is to know what's happening here. That is no one else's business. Um, you're not allowed to share that. Other than that, it was kind of, I was expected to be home and to help with making the dinner and doing chores. Um, but it was just mainly that boundary of like, do not say anything to anyone of what was happening.
So it sounds like from that lack of boundaries, you were inadvertently placed in a role where you had to hold things together emotionally. So
Right.
growing up without clear boundaries can really lead to a number of things, but they do include anxiety and hypervigilance and difficulty feeling safe, especially, and in your case, around men who remind your nervous system of these early patterns. So if we just gently connect your childhood environment to what you feel at work, when you're in a meeting with men and your body tightens, does any part of that physical reaction feel similar to you?
It feels very similar. It feels like I'm just kind of initially, as soon as like the door shuts, like sometimes I have like in like as soon as I hear the door click and I know like men are in the room and I'm stuck in the room, I'll have like flashbacks of like my stepdad and it's terrifying. So I just it's just kind of that instant of like knowing I'm like the potential of being so vulnerable and unsafe in a situation and not having like that like the ease of being like able to escape, especially if there's like if I'm really outnumbered. Um, so I'm not sure if I answered your question because just having like the thought of it is
You
getting me
absolutely did.
anxious.
And yeah, well, your nervous system has learned to stay alert around men who had power or unpredictable behavior. And that, along with the lunchtime drinking, that's not a failure on your part. It's just your nervous system trying to protect you from overwhelming stress. So everything that you're experiencing today makes sense in the context of your family system.
Well, it makes me feel a little better knowing that there's like a potential reason why I'm doing some of the things I do. And it's not just me not being able to handle life.
Yes. And knowing, having this knowledge and having this psychoeducation and trying to make sense of your past and your present, and your feelings, once you tie it all together, it can give you a sense of confidence and it'll help you stay present and grounded in your adult life. So even when your old feelings from your family system get triggered, it's something we call differentiation. So to make it clear, I can borrow a little language from another system called internal family systems because it helps people understand why their reactions feel so strong. So
Okay.
internal family systems, they talk about the idea that we all have different parts inside of us, like internal roles that we've developed to survive in our early environment. So, for example, when you're in a meeting with men and your chest tightens, that might be your younger protective part reacting, that part that learned a long time ago that being alert kept you safe. So, internal family systems calls these parts managers. They're ones who try to control situations, they anticipate danger, they essentially prevent you from getting hurt again. And when the anxiety becomes overwhelming, another part may jump in quickly, the part that reaches for alcohol to help you get through the day or fall asleep at night. So we call these firefighters. These are the parts that act fast to put out the emotional flames when things feel unbearable.
Protect me.
So we're not switching models here, but I want to see you. We're not switching models here, but I want you to see how this idea fits within the therapy, the family systems therapy that we're working with now. So your internal parts were shaped by the external family systems you grew up in. They formed in response to your roles and your boundaries and the emotional atmosphere of your childhood home. So, with that in mind, when you start to feel overwhelmed now, What helps you stay connected to the grounded adult part of you, or what we would call the self?
Um, so when I'm feeling super overwhelmed, a lot of times if I'll just kind of excuse myself to get out of the room, and then I'll just say like I have to go to the bathroom, and then once I can get out, and if I get to the bathroom where it's a single stall, so I can shut the door and I'm by myself, and then I can take a few like deep breaths. And at that time, like I know I'm safe, so I can start to calm down again. And it helps me to just realize that, like, okay, like you're okay, you're gonna be fine. Um, but then obviously it gets a little worse when I have to walk back into the room.
That's great. Just those grounding practices that you described, that helps bring forward yourself, the calm, compassionate, steady part of you, so the protective parts don't have to work as hard. So, Emily, I want to offer you a reframe. Your anxiety, the drinking, none of them came out of nowhere. They're understandable responses to the emotional roles that you had to take on in your family system. So if you think of your symptoms as a survival patterns your younger self learned, what comes up for you?
Um, I mean, it's starting to make more sense to me, just kind of understanding those kind of internal parts of myself. Like when I can visualize like a manager basically, and then like a firefighter, and then like myself, like to me that makes a lot more sense um versus before. So that, like, I don't know, it's interesting, like learning about the different parts of myself and understanding some of the reason, like why I do the things I do. So it is interesting, and I'm sure like as I like between now and our next session, when it takes more time to process and like fully think through it, it'll be interesting to see when I come back, like how like our conversation at that point about it.
I'm glad it makes sense. And I want you to see that you are not broken. You are adapting. You learned these patterns early, and now you're starting to see the connection. You didn't create these patterns, you inherited them. But now you finally have the chance to shift them. I'm really proud you made some powerful connections today. So next time we can map your family system in more detail and we can start identifying where you can loosen those old roles and strengthen your own emotional boundaries for today. So thank you for showing up so honestly today. You're really doing meaningful work and you're not alone in this.
Thank you.